And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel for everything Arsenal and everything football. But this time round, we're here to talk about the Fantasy Premier League. The Premier League kicks off on like 2 days, like less than 2 days, and the Fantasy Premier League is also here with us. I don't know why we always do this to ourselves. It's always so stressful. So you might think like, nah, no reason to play, but yeah, we enjoy it. So I have three guests with me. Let me introduce the first one, Josh. Say hi to the people.
You right, guys?
Yeah. Where can they follow you and your details?
So we're at FPL Graduates on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok.
Awesome. Ben,
Hello.
where can they get you?
Thank you.
Same
Thank you.
places, right?
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
same
same places
places.
for both.
Yeah. And Kami, good to have you here finally.
Hey, how are you guys? I'm excited.
Awesome, awesome. So today you're going to talk about the best goalkeeper picks, best defensive picks, midfield picks, captain picks, and all that. And these guys have a YouTube channel talking about FPL and stuff. So you can follow Josh and Ben at FPL Graduates and Mukami Wambora at Mukami Wambora on YouTube. And Josh, let's start with you. What are your expectations for this season? Excited?
Yeah, buzzing. Can't wait for football to be back, to be fair. I'm just hoping and improving on last year. Ben just beat me last year, so I've got to overtake him for next.
What position did you come?
We was just inside the top 100k, so not too bad. It was for like our first proper season that we done it as well.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, I'm buzzing to get season started to beat Josh again mainly in FPL. So we'll see what happens, and let's hope we have another great FPL season like last year.
How about you, Mukami, last season? Was it a good season for you?
This always happens. I start off really strong, and then I think when Corona happened, when it came back, I didn't change my team, so I didn't do so well. But then, yeah, I'm excited. I start off well. So if people are waiting for tips, this is the best time to get me because I've done so much research, and then at some point I trail off. So take advantage.
Yeah, shout out to everyone in the chat. There's another Ben in the chat. Hi to you, Liam, Toby, Is Gunners, Charlie, and everyone else in the chat. RK Sweetie, thanks for being here. So let's just get straight into it. We have 8 fixtures this weekend. United and City are not playing since they're involved in the Champions League and Europa League. So Ben, let's start with you. Let's start with the best goalkeeper picks for this game week and the whole season in general. Which one are
So,
you fancying?
so for the whole season, I've got two keepers who I'm going to rotate. That is McCarthy and Ryan, both priced at 4.5 million. They've got unbelievable fixtures. No FDR rating over 3 until game week 22. So that is until February that they have a really like top 4 difficult fixture. So I'm just going to go with them, and we'll get some clean sheets along the way. We'll get some good points, and that will set me up quite nicely for the rest of the team.
Who's your goalkeeper for this week?
So for this week, I'm going with McCarthy. He's got a bit of an easy fixture this week, so I think it goes without saying I'm just going to put him in. He'll get me a clean sheet, so we'll move from there.
Yeah. And Kami?
For me, I've decided to go for Pickford. What I do is I make a very strong first team, and then like my bench can be like whatever. So Pickford for me, I think with the new system that um, um, Ancelotti's playing, he'll do well. I think he's bolstered the defense as well in Everton. So I've decided to go with him. And then I've put Nyland is a 4. I'm like, I want to save every single cent. I'm going to spend it in attack and in midfield.
Uh-huh. I'll come back to that formation thing. Josh?
Yeah, I'm the same as Ben. I've got McCarthy and Ryan in goal. Areola is joining Fulham though, so I'm tempted by him. If he comes in at 4.5 million, might have a look at him because he's obviously a world-class goalkeeper.
Yeah. So for me, I'd probably go for I prefer having one playing goalkeeper and one goalkeeper not playing. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like spending too much in the goalkeeper position. So I'll
Yeah.
probably go for McCarthy. I agree with Ben. McCarthy will definitely be in my team. Mading says he has Ryan. I can see Charlie saying De Gea and Henderson. De Gea and Henderson too expensive, Josh. De Gea and Henderson, both of them.
Yeah, no, they're both 5.5 million, and to be honest, I'm not even sure who's going to play out of both of them. I think there's going to see a lot of rotation potentially in goal, depending on like how far they get in competitions and stuff like that.
And how about
Yeah.
Ramsdale? Mukami, what do you think about Ramsdale just signed for Sheffield United?
For me, I'm of the opinion Sheffield this season wouldn't be as good as last season, so I'm not going to bet a lot on them. And it's better to go with attacking players. So he's a good bet, but I mean, I'm sticking with Pickford because Pickford, even if he concedes, he likes making saves. So that's what I look at. So you'll still get a few points even if the team concedes. That's why I'm going with at least a keeper who makes those saves.
Yeah, and Ben.
I'm gonna disagree, and I'm gonna say Ramsdale is a great option to have this year. I think Sheffield United are going to be even more solid potentially this season with Ramsdale coming in, Ampadu obviously. They know their system, they know their set. They've made more signings in defence. They could be even more solid than last season.
I think I'd agree with Mukami. I don't think Sheffield will have a good season, just the same with Liverpool. I don't expect both of them to replicate last season's performance, but defensively, they're still a good team. I'll still go with them, but we'll focus on Sheffield United later on. So let's just get into the defenders. We'll start with you, Josh. Defenders, what are you thinking about the defenders? First of all, which formation are you thinking?
So currently I'm set up in a 4-4-2 on my draft, and the four defenders that I've picked are quite expensive, to be fair. I think I've gone more money into my defence because I feel they'll overall, like throughout the whole season, they'll score more than these cheaper alternatives in midfield. So I've gone with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who for me is just a must. The guy not only keeps clean sheets, but he scores goals and assists goals. Like, he's literally the most ideal player you could ask for. I've got Eric Dyer in a Tottenham defender. I think Tottenham are going to have a better year this year. It's second season Mourinho. He loves winning trophies in his second season. And I think they'll pretty much guarantee top four this year. Also in my defence, I've got Jamal Lewis, who's just signed for Newcastle United. Steve Bruce is a great defensive coach. Newcastle, I think, kept 12 clean sheets last season. So one of the highest in the league, which is really good. And I think he'll just make that defence even better. Then my last and final pick is the Sheffield United defender of Chris Basham. He's one of the more attacking centre-backs in their formation. And he's quite low-owned as well, so a bit of a differential there as well.
Yeah. Josh, who do you have in your back four? Sorry, Ben.
I've gone a similar sort of theme. I've also gone four at the back. I've gone Trent Alexander-Arnold because if you've not got him in your team, then you're not going to get a good rank because he returns more than most midfielders in FPL. So it's silly not to have him in. So he's my first pick on the team sheet. I've also gone Eric Dyer. I think in defence, he's playing centre-back under Mourinho this season. They're going to be solid. Mourinho's second season, we know what he does. He gets the business done. I'm going to go for James Justin of Leicester City. I think whilst Pereira's injured, he's going to start and he's going to get the points, the clean sheets. And he looked good in post-lockdown. And I've gone a bit different to Josh in the Sheffield United defender. I've gone John Egan. I think he's more likely to start. I think since Ampadu's come in, Basham's spot may be in a little bit of jeopardy. But Egan, solid choice for me, even if it does have a high percentage.
Yeah. Mukami, who do you have in your back four, back three, or back five?
Yeah, I think Ben was saying I was stupid not to have Trent Alexander-Arnold last season at some point because I was just like trying to save money. I had Robertson, and every time Trent scored, it like killed me inside. So I think he was the first person I put on my team this year. And then same thing as them, Tottenham. I've decided to go with Aurier instead of Dyer. Mourinho, defensive man. And then Tottenham have such easy fixtures. The first 6 fixtures that Tottenham have are quite easy, so it'll be simple for them to keep clean sheets. And then I have gone with Maitland-Niles. he's cheap and he's being played on the wing and will be attacking quite a bit. So that's a decision I've made. And lastly, I've gone with Mitchell, who is super cheap. It's £4 million, and Van Aanholt is injured, so he's been playing for Crystal Palace, at least in the preseason games, in his position, and he's cheap. So, yeah, those are my options.
Yeah, fun you brought up Aurier, because he might end up leaving like in the next few weeks or something. So Doherty will probably be there. But I always try to avoid any Tottenham players. You of course know the hate for Tottenham. Josh, if you could take that question on screen right now, any defenders you recommend?
Other than the ones that I've said, I agree with Arsenal's defence. Arsenal have a strong two fixtures to open the season. And I think Kieran Tierney is a great option because he'll either play like left-sided centre-half or left wing-back, depending on what formation Arteta sets up. And yeah, you could even get some attacking returns in the Arsenal team.
And Ben, one defender, cheap defender you can recommend.
One cheap defender I'd recommend. He's not playing the first game week, but Charlie Taylor of Burnley. That team is solid defensively, and Taylor returns attackingly. I know Josh had him last season and was doing wonders for him. So, yeah, he's on my bench, and he is the one defender I'd recommend.
How about Eric Peters? I also had him last season. He did bits for me. Do you think it's
both of them do get a lot of minutes as well. So you've got the option of even like them two, and then on the right side you've got Bardsley. There's a lot of good defensive options in there that you could potentially pick. It's just a matter of which one you want to pick, really.
Yeah, Eric Peters was deployed at left wing as well towards the end of last season, so even more like chance for attacking returns.
Yeah, and Mukami to the midfield now. We've seen players like Aubameyang now being moved from striking to midfield. Very expensive midfield, very expensive players. Who are you fancying in that those midfield potentials, all those expensive players?
Yeah, for me, Aubameyang is a must. You know, if he was midfield last year, he'd have more points than De Bruyne, who was the top in midfield. So now that they've moved him up, I think he'll be a good return. And interesting fact, Aubameyang has not gone more than 3 games without scoring or assisting. So guaranteed points when you have him. And but like Liverpool, it's either Salah or Mane. For me, I'd rather have De Bruyne, but since it's the first game week, I've decided to go with Mane. I am Team Senegal all the way. So it was more of Egypt or Senegal since they're both African. And I decided to go with the team I support, which is Senegal. And then I have also gone with Havertz. I think he's a steal for 8.5, and the role he'll play in Chelsea is coming into that Hazard role. So depending on how well Werner plays, he'll be a very key figure for Chelsea. And considering that all of the other midfielders in the big teams are going for 12, 9, 9.5, Kina Rashford, I put my bet on Havertz. And then I also have Susek, who played really well last season, and he's a big attacking threat. So I've decided to go with him.
Yeah, Josh, do you really think the Chelsea assets will hit the ground running immediately, like from the go?
I've personally decided to stay away from Chelsea as much as I possibly could, just because I want to see like what Lampard does. You got a few people injured. There's a lot of different things happening. One person who I think will definitely get going straight away is Timo Werner. He's unremarkable form last season. I think he's going to bring that straight to the Premier League. With Kai Havertz, it's going to be interesting because I feel like he'll be playing a deeper role more than going forward. So yeah, like Lampard hasn't had this many options since he's joined. So I really want to see how he sets up and how they're going to play from the go.
So who's in your midfield?
My midfield is Aubameyang, of course, because those 2 good fixtures, and I'm going to use him as a placeholder for a Manchester City asset come like game week 3. I've also got Mo Salah because he loves scoring at home, Leeds at home, first day of the season. I can see him potentially getting a lot of goals there, and he's my captain for the first game week as well. other players, I've got Son in at 9 million. My plan with him is that he's got Everton at home, and then I've got 1.5 in the bank to transfer him up to Bruno Fernandes, who since joining Manchester United has completely changed the team, and that I think he's just going to be one of the best, if not the highest scoring midfielder this year. And then my final midfielder is a 5.5 million John Lundstrom. He was obviously the cheap defender last year, but the guy's got the most goals out of all of the 5.5 million midfielders. So I think he's going to be a fantastic player to use.
Ben?
Yeah, so I've yet again gone for a similar sort of theme. I've got Heung-min Son in there as my first midfielder, and my plan is to get him out after the first game week and bring in Mason Greenwood, who is one of the most prolific strikers probably in Europe. We'll find out in a few weeks, because I think not having him in, 7.5 million for a goal scorer, a bargain for me. Next, I've got Aubameyang, 12 million for a striker. It's unbelievable value, as well as playing midfield. I'm going to get him out as well after 2 game weeks and bring in probably Raheem Sterling. I've also got Mo Salah, and he's also my captain. Again, the last 3 seasons in a row, Salah has scored in the opening day, and you can't ignore stats like that, so he's got to be my captain. And then my final midfielder is going to be Dendoncker of Wolves. He's just in there as a little £5 million option. I expect him to get a few points here and there, but he will come out of my team eventually in place for maybe someone like Pereira.
Yeah, Mukami, Ben in the chat says Lingardinho. Will he ever come close to your team?
I think if Lingardinho is in my team, I wouldn't have a FPL YouTube channel. Let's just say that.
Josh, what do you think? What do you think about Mateus Pereira? Someone has just put it in the chat.
Yeah, he's a very, very good option, coming in at £6 million. I think he got 8 goals and 20 assists in the Championship last year. And I think if West Brom can get a striker who's better than Charlie Austin and Hal Robson-Kanu, I think you'll see West Brom do some good things attacking, like in the attack this season. They've also got signed Dean Garner from West Ham, who West Ham were fuming to lose. He's a very good player. He got 8 goals and 6 assists last season for West Brom. So yeah, they've got some really fun and excited, like creative players. They just need that striker to put them away.
Yeah. Let me get your formation right first. What's your formation, Josh?
4-4-2.
Ben?
4-4-2 as well.
Mukami?
Same, 4-4-2.
Cool.
I'm not the type to have 4 defenders. I just usually don't trust the defenders. But anyway, I'm guessing you only have 2 strikers. So let's start with you, Ben. Who are your 2 strikers?
So I've gone for Timo Werner as my first striker. I think the amount of goals he scored last season, he scored near enough 30 goals last season. You can't ignore it. He's clinical in the box, and he's not the sort of striker to get screamers. He's a sort of striker to get in the box and finish the chances. And with the midfield that Chelsea now have, they're going to be producing chance after chance for him, and I just feel like he's going to get a bag load. My second striker is going to be Alexander Mitrovic. At £6 million, Mitrovic is a bargain. He scored 28 goals in the Championship last season, and he's proven in the Prem. He's played for Newcastle before, obviously with Fulham as well last time they were in the Premier League. So those are 2 great options, which I've gone for.
How about your bench? Do you have like a playing striker on the bench, or just like a 4 million striker, 4.5?
So I have my £4.5 million striker in Brewster. He's just on the bench. He could go out on loan to someone and could be sold. So if he does go there, I at least know I've got him. He's obviously a good player, so I'm basically seeing what's happening with him.
Yeah, Mukami will come to you next. The 2 strikers you have playing.
Okay, for me, I have Werner, but I feel like I'm doing it because of peer pressure. I don't want to be the person who doesn't get his points just in case he scores. But ideally, I'd rather have Martial. So since Martial isn't playing the first game week, I've opted to just see what Werner can do. And if I'm not convinced, I'll just straight swap him with Martial. And I've gone for Vardy. In my head, I can't believe people aren't choosing Vardy. He's the one striker who has convinced everyone that he can keep scoring goals in the Premier League for so many seasons, and he's just 10 million. So I'm keeping faith in Vardy, and that's who I have. And then on my bench, same as Ben, I have Brewster, who's just chillaxing.
I agree with Vardy. He actually has West Brom as the first game, and then Burnley the next game. I think he can actually get like 4 goals in those first 2 games. So I'd also consider Vardy. The only problem is that 10 million this season. I don't know if I can fit him in. Josh, your 2 strikers.
Yeah, I had Vardy in my first initial draft because I saw those fixtures and he's the Golden Boot winner last season, and I thought he had to be a shoo-in. But when you start tinkering and seeing how much those midfielders are costing, you sort of have to downgrade from that high price tag. So I've gone with Timo Werner in at 9.5 million. I think enough's been said about him. Just got to see how he does, basically. And then my other striker, it's a 6 million striker. It's the last position in my team that I'm changing about. Ollie Watkins signed for Aston Villa today, and he scored 26 goals in the Championship last season with no penalties. So that really interests me, especially with Jack Grealish behind him, supplying chances. He played very well in those pre-season games for England when he did actually get a chance. So I feel like I could be swayed to him, but currently I do have Mitrovic.
Cookie says I got Mope and Antonio. Ben, Antonio, do you expect him to replicate the end of season form?
No, I'm going to say no because West Ham are a shambles at the moment from what I've been seeing. They sold Dean Garner. The fans are all being really toxic at the moment, and it's getting to the point where at one stage they were offering 20 million for Ben Rama, refused to pay 5 million more. What is going on at that board? What is going on at that club? I don't know. So that could potentially affect on-pitch performances from the players being unsettled. So I don't think it's the wisest move going for Antonio, but it's also a risk. If it does pay off, he'll pay out heavily.
Yeah, and in addition to that, West Ham have a really tough fixture list. Like the first 6 games, they're playing Arsenal, they're playing City, they're playing Spurs, they're playing Leicester, they're playing Wolves. It's crazy. It's not worth the risk. And at 6 million, 6.5 million, you can get Ayu, you can get Maupai. Like there are other better options at that price point. Even Austin or Kanu, who are 5.5, and you can use that money to boost either your midfield or your defense.
True. And Josh, she just mentioned Maupe. Are you considering any Brighton players?
I think Neil Maupay is a good option. He's going into his second year at Brighton, and Brighton are quite a good attacking team. They do go under the radar under Graham Potter. I think he's a good manager for them. So yeah, I'd personally keep Maupay if you have the funds for it. But another 6.5 million striker. He doesn't play game week 1, but he's the top goal scorer out of that category. Is Chris Wood. He's very slept on. The guy just scores goals. Like if Burnley score, usually Wood scores. So I think Chris Wood after game week 2, I think you have to get him in.
Yeah. Question for you, Ben. Would you consider Mitrovic or Chris Wood?
Well, Mitrovic is obviously in my team to begin with, but Chris Wood, definitely an option that I'm considering, but it is who I'm going to drop to get him in, to be honest, because the strikers that I've got, I'm quite happy and settled with, so I'd have to switch around quite a bit in order to shoehorn him in, and that's the only problem I have with trying to get him into my team.
Yeah, Mukami being an Arsenal fan, someone says Aubameyang triple captain first week. Are you the type to use the triple captain that early, or do you prefer to wait and see?
Yo, triple captains, all of those you save for double game weeks. You have to save for double game weeks, man. I'm not the, but it's like a lot of people. You try and use all of those things so that you can be number 1, like in Kenya. You use all of your points so that at one point you can be like, I was number 1 in Kenya, and then forget about the league.
But the thing with Aubameyang is that the player who can go and score 4 goals in that game. So it wouldn't matter. But yeah, I agree to wait and see. One last question for the strikers. Josh, Rodrigo at Leeds.
Yeah, a really good signing for Leeds. The only questionable thing is that I think he only scored 4 goals for Valencia last season in La Liga. So he doesn't look prolific in terms of scoring goals, but maybe assisting and setting up goals. He's a perfect fit for the Bielsa press. He loves to press. So, but maybe could supply some goals to like Patrick Bamford at 5.5 million. But I think it is getting slept on a little bit. He had like an XG, which is like expected goals, of 35 goals last season in the Championship. He did only score 18, but I feel like at 5.5 million, it's a risk well taken because you can just use the money elsewhere that you're not spending on an expensive striker.
Yeah, and normally in the fantasy, there are always those players that come in from the Championship that like light the Premier League on fire. So he could be a really good option.
Yeah, and so those are the goalkeeper picks and the defense and the midfield and the striking positions. We're now going to get to a part of the show called the FPL Focus. We're going to focus on Sheffield United for the first week. I'm going to start with you, Josh. You expect Sheffield United to have a season like they did last? Mukami has already told us that she doesn't expect that. What are your expectations from him, from Chris Wilder and his team?
Well, I really like Chris Wilder. Everywhere he's been, he's done a phenomenal job. He's always got teams promoted and playing well. So I don't think they'll finish as highly, but I think you'll see the same sort of performances, the strong defensive. They'll catch you on the break and score a goal. They're strengthened in depth this season, which is important because if they do get injuries, that was the main issue, is that they don't really have any players to come in. They signed both fullbacks from Derby. I think it was, I'm not sure on their names, I think it's Boygle and someone else. And then they also signed Oliver Burke from from West Brom in a swap deal. And they're looking at Rhian Brewster. I think they're quite confident of signing Brewster either on loan or on a permanent with a buyback clause for Liverpool. So if Brewster does move, expect his ownership to skyrocket at that 4.5 million price tag. He offers something different from the likes of Burnley and McGoldrick that they currently have at their team.
How about you, Ben? Are you still going to go for double Sheffield defense like people used to do last season?
I've only got one in my defence, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on Sheffield United yet again. For the past 5-6 years, whatever's been going on from when they went to League One, people have been writing them off and saying they're not going to do as well as they did last season. And every year they keep proving them wrong. I think the signings that they've made about £25 million worth of signings on around 10 players. Every single one I've seen fits Wilder's style perfectly. We see the likes of Ampadu in defence. He's going to be 4.5 million and going for that starting spot. So another overlapping centre-back. He's going to get attacking returns. I'm all about that.
But you need to remember that there are teams that play really well as soon as they get promoted and then they fall off the next season. And just looking back, 2017-2018 season, Burnley finished 7th. And then the year after that, they finished 15th. So it feels like one of those, it carries momentum and then at some point it just starts to fade away. And a lot of the teams that have come up, Fulham and Leeds and West Brom, they're eager to sort of establish themselves back in the Premier League.
I agree with you in terms of the Burnley case but however, you've got to think about the style of play that Burnley were playing compared to Sheffield United. Sheffield United are playing a brand of football that has not really been seen before in top flight football at all. And again, this season, they're perfecting this system, getting the players in, and they could kick on and could do as well as they did last season. It's a case of maybe looking and seeing the first 5-6 game weeks whether they can replicate it, but they've got more strength and depth, so they're going to be able to keep this going over a longer period of time, especially over that Christmas period as well, where fixtures get congested.
Yeah, but the thing is also because they did so well last season, the prices have skyrocketed. So the defenders for Sheffield United are so expensive, and it doesn't feel like it's worth the risk to have so many of them when you can get cheaper options in other teams.
I definitely think it's worth having at least one in there. I don't think 2 is going to be the way to go forward this season. But yeah, Ampadu at 4.5 million, don't sleep on him. He might be that new John Lundstrom. Because we think about it, he plays left and right of that centre-back slot, but he can also play in defensive mid, where potentially they could be lacking a bit more. They've only got Sander Berge in there, and he could play there and could get attacking returns like Lundstrom did last year.
Who did you say?
Ethan Ampadu. He's on loan from Chelsea.
Okay. Speaking
of one, Ben has just said one. Who would be the one that you pick from Sheffield? Ampadu?
I'd go John Egan. I think it's not like confirmed that Ampadu is going to be starting. It's confirmed that Egan will be starting right in the centre of that Sheffield United defence. He got lots of points last season, so I think the same's going to happen again.
Josh, one option from Sheffield.
I personally go Aaron Ramsdale. I think he, in a struggling Bournemouth team, he made a lot of saves last season and nearly helped keep Bournemouth alive in the Premier League. So, yeah, Aaron Ramsdale is going to replace Dean Henderson and hopefully do a better job for the Blades.
Mukami, between Chris Basham and Enda Stevens, who would you pick?
No, I was even going to say Lundstrom. I'm still not convinced of that. Defenders. That's what I was going to say you can get from Sheffield. But between the two, I think, I don't know. Basham is 5. I go for the cheapest option. I don't think it served me well in the past, so don't quote me on that. But I would have picked Basham.
Yeah, Josh. What do you know about Oliver Buck? Any news on him?
So they've just signed him. It was like a swap deal for Callum Robinson, one of their old strikers. He played very, very well in the Championship. I do believe for like Nottingham Forest, and then he made the move to West Brom, where he's been a bit quieter and not scored as many goals and played as much. But Chris Wilder seems to have a thing with just reigniting players and doing better with their careers. The guy's a lot different, like Brewster, to the current strikers they have. He's a lot quicker, and I think that's what they need to improve on their attack. Because obviously, we all know Sheffield United do not score a lot of goals, and when they do, they're scrappy. So I think they need a lot more pace going forward, and that will help them be able to press quicker and also start those counter attacks faster.
Yeah, awesome. That was the focus on Sheffield United. The next thing you're going to talk about is the Premier League fixtures for this weekend. 8 games, as I said. I'll start with you, Mukami. Which game will you be focusing on most? Which one will you have 3 players or 4 players from that game?
Oh, for me, I think I'm heavy on Chelsea players and Arsenal.
Mhm.
So those are the 2 games that I will focus on. But honestly, I want to keep my eye out on Spurs. Like my team is still, I'll probably have like a completely different set of players by the time I'm locking in. But I really want to focus on Spurs. I think Son should do really well, and I want to see James and see if he'll actually come in and play for Everton, or if they'll take some time to sort of bring him into the team. But Chelsea for sure, like let's see what formation they'll start with. Let's see who they'll have in. Will it be Mount? Will it be Ziyech? Will it be Havertz? Like it's gonna be so interesting to see what they do with that team. So I want to have my eye out on that game.
Yeah, Ben, which game are you focusing on most?
I'm going to focus on 2 games the most. It would be the Liverpool one, considering I've got Trent and Mo Salah in there as my captain. It'll be interesting to see how Leeds set up as well, if they're going to be defensively sound and solid, because if they are, that could be a potential switch I could make in defence. And I'm also going to focus on, again, with the Tottenham game, see how Mourinho sets up in that defensive shape and hopefully see Son return. And then on the other hand, look at Everton and how they're setting up under Ancelotti. They've obviously made a lot of new signings, so it'd be intriguing to see how they all fit together and where they all play.
How about you, Josh?
I'm going to go a bit outside the box. I'm going to focus on Crystal Palace versus Southampton. I think it'll be interesting to see how Southampton do. They're one of the best attacking sides in the Premier League last year, and they've got a lot of good players and a lot of cheap options that you can put into your FPL teams. They've got the likes of Shea Adams at 6, James Ward-Prowse at 6 million, Armstrong at 5.5, although Armstrong won't be playing in that game because he's injured. And obviously Danny Ings at 8.5. See if Danny Ings can recreate that form that he had last season, scoring loads of goals.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. I just need one answer. Just mention the team. Which team are you going to avoid their defense? Which defense are you going to avoid totally for the whole season? From which team?
I can go first.
West Ham?
West Ham.
Wow. Ben?
I don't want.
Fulham.
Josh?
I'm going to be controversial. Probably not going to like me after this. So I'm going to say Arsenal.
Okay, guys, that's where we are going to end the stream. You just said Arsenal, so disrespectful to Arteta. But yeah, I think Tierney is going to have a good season. But apart from that, I'd have to agree with you. It's too much switching. Saliba, Lewis, you don't know who's going to play. I'm going to give that question to you, Josh. Lewis Dunk, are you considering for this season?
I have actually considered him. He's in the 5 million category, so not as cheap as years gone by, but the guy loves a goal. You see him scoring. He even took a few free kicks for Brighton last season. So yeah, definitely a good option. I think the only issue with Brighton at the minute is that their fixtures are just not as favourable as ones like other teams. So, but yeah, Lewis Dunk's definitely an option. If you don't have Ryan, I'd say definitely try and get Duncan.
Yeah, Brighton is the team that I think are going to be relegated this season. So I'm definitely going to avoid them. Just before we get into the captain picks for this weekend, that's the code to my FPL league. If you want a direct link, you can click on the link in the description and it will take you to the Everything Arsenal League. Let's get to the captain picks for this weekend. Let's start with you, Mukami. Which players are you considering for captaincy this weekend? Oh, she's gone. Oops. Ben, will you give me that question?
So my captain for this week is going to be Mohamed Salah. As I said earlier, he's playing against the newly promoted side at home at Anfield, and the past 3 seasons he's scored every single time on that first game week. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Obviously, you got that option of Salah or Aubameyang. I think Aubameyang will return as well, but I don't think he'll return as many as Mo Salah is going to. I think too explosive not to get at least a goal and an assist. So that's going to be my captain for this week.
Josh?
My captain I've chosen is Mo Salah, mainly because you shouldn't back the early kickoff with Aubameyang and Arsenal. I can just see something bad happening. You know, like it's first game of the season. Fulham just been promoted. They're going to be absolutely buzzing to play in the Premier League again. I can see something happening there. I just don't trust it. So yeah, so Salah, like Ben said, he's a fantastic player. Scores at home. I think he only didn't score at home like twice last season in 2 games. So yeah, he's just a must captain for me.
Coming right back on time. Josh and Ben have fancied the Liverpool players and have avoided the Arsenal players. Are you going to captain Aubameyang?
No, of course I'm gonna go for Aubameyang. Abuma what? Yeah. He's coming off a really good run of games. He scored in the FA Cup final. He scored again in the Shield. He scored 3. He almost became top scorer in the final game week of the season. So he's on form. So I'd rather just trust in my Aubameyang.
Yeah. Josh, is there any other player that could get less than 2% captaincy and you think will do well this weekend? Low ownership.
I'm not sure. In terms of the captaincy, I think a slept-on one, like we've mentioned previously, is Jamie Vardy. He's facing West Bromwich Albion away from home the first game of the season. Jamie Vardy loves scoring goals against West Brom. He's got a fantastic record against them. So yeah, so if you have him in your team, I think it's a great option, but I wouldn't necessarily go and get him when you could have someone like Salah already.
Ben?
Oh, now he's making me change my mind because I have Vardy. I'm like, okay, maybe.
Ben, any option you're considering apart from the Liverpool players and the big players?
In terms of a differential captain choice?
Yeah.
I'd say maybe if you're thinking really outside the box, Dele Alli. He's just under 5% ownership, playing against Everton, this team who have just been put together by Ancelotti with all these new signings coming here, left, right, and centre. So it could be a case of Spurs taking advantage this weekend of that newly gelling together Everton side. So a player like Dele Alli could be a good option to have.
Yeah, you guys can send in any questions you have in the chat. We're going to end it in 10 minutes. So you can send in any questions. These guys will answer it. These guys have won around 100 Grammy Award-winning FPL awards between them. they're the experts, not me. So we throw the questions to them. For the non-captaincy for the whole season in general, which player do you think will do well and people aren't considering? Mukami will give it to you.
For me, I will have to go with
Okay.
Adam Lallana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Adam Lallana because if you remember, he was so great at Southampton. I used to have him all the time in my fantasy team. He used to bring in so many points. He takes free kicks, he takes corners, he takes penalties. So he's gone over to Brighton. Of course, he didn't do much at Liverpool because, you're competing against Firmino and you're competing against Salah and Mane. It's going to be difficult to get any game time. So now I think he's at home, a mid-level team, and he's like the big fish in the pond. I think it's somewhere where he can thrive. So I'm expecting to see him sort of regain his confidence in that team and start bringing in those points.
Yeah. Ben, question for you. Do you think Phil Foden is a starter this season?
Yes, I definitely think Phil Foden is at least going to get a lot more minutes than he did last season. At £6.5 million for an asset in a Man City team that's attacking, for me, it's a no-brainer. So he's straight onto my bench. He showed his absolute quality in post-lockdown last season. He's probably going to fit that David Silva mould and get a lot of assists. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does this season. Him and Mason Greenwood, two England bright young talents. Surely they're going to get loads of FPL points this year.
But bright young talents.
Yeah. Josh, I'll give you Almiron. Are you considering any Newcastle players? For me, I think Wilson and Fraser, they're actually going to have some goals.
Yeah.
So do you think Almiron will be part of them?
Yeah, so Newcastle obviously bringing in both of those Bournemouth boys. They're looking pretty sharp up top. They already were good defensively, as I've mentioned, but Almiron, I think, is one of those differential options where I think Alan Saint-Maximin is on about 20% ownership currently, which is super high considering no one's going to be like captaining him or anything like that. So yeah, Almiron, he's a little bit more expensive at £6 million, but towards post-lockdown, he was performing really well in that Newcastle side. And I think definitely if you're looking for an outside-the-box option, go for him.
Then Charlie says he has 5 million. What should he do with it? I think it's done in terms of defense. Who should he get for 5 million?
In terms of defense, for 5 million, Eric Dyer, solid at the back, playing in the centre of Mourinho's 5-back. We all know that Mourinho loves parking the bus and loves getting clean sheets, so that'd be the option I go for.
There's a question from Liam, I think, earlier asking. I'll give it to you, Josh. The best midfield option from the other teams apart from the top 6.
Non-top 6 midfield option. I'm going to go for Grady Diangana from West Brom. I've had him in my draft. I might even take him into the first weekend. He's at 5.5 million, so he's super cheap. And I think he's just going to be really explosive out on the wing for West Brom. He's very skillful. You might have seen his goal going about on Twitter in the end of last season for West Brom. He just looked really good and like a player that I can get behind and I'll actually enjoy watching because it's all about having fun as well as getting all those points.
Awesome. Last question for you guys. We'll start with you, Mukami. 2 players who will definitely score this weekend.
2 players who will definitely score. I'm going to say Vardy will definitely score this weekend. And these guys have convinced me that Salah will score. I'm like hearing those stats and I'm like, okay, Salah might score. But then I'm still so loyal to Mane. That's why I'm still a grieving Arsenal supporter because of that silly thing called loyalty. So
Josh?
2 players to score this weekend. I'm going to go for Heung-min Son. I think he might get a goal against Everton. And then, yeah, Salah. He's a must. There's no reason to bet against him.
Ben?
So obviously, first one's going to be Mo Salah. The stats don't lie. He's going to score. And my second one, I'm going to go very controversial. Mitrovic. I think he could do something against that Arsenal defence. I know you got David Luiz out injured. He's a big physical lad. He could get one in. but I do see Arsenal getting a few goals, so I reckon you'll win that one.
Oh, wow. Ben says Mitrovic is going to score. Josh is saying our defense is awful. So it's going to be a long weekend for any Arsenal fan watching this. And
I really hope Mitrovic backfires because so many people have picked him. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know. They had a horrible second half of the season. Post-corona, Fulham weren't playing very well. And I don't know. It sounds like really horrible, but I'm hoping for him to fail. Like those are now when the differentials will come in. If you don't have him, you're gonna be dancing all the way to the top of the table.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Last question. What's your target for this season, Josh? Ranking?
Hopefully top 50k. I think I made a lot of bad captaincy choices last year, so I'm just gonna stick. I'm gonna keep it standard, go with the flow, and just not think about it too much, really.
Okay, you might as well answer this one. Which player will definitely be in your team from game week 1 to game week 38?
Easy pick there. It's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think they only didn't return in 2 game weeks last season, so a stat like that you definitely cannot snuff your nose at.
Ben, your target for this season?
So obviously top 49k. I'm going to beat Josh again this season. That's the main target. In terms of a player that is going to be in my team all season, again, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I had him in pretty much all of last season, and he pretty much won me my mini league in FPL. So I'm going to stick by him again, and hopefully, do some good things with Trent in there.
Mukami, target for this season?
Man, my target for the season is to actually be consistent until the end of the season. And then I want to actually give myself a good go and find out how well I can do. But at least in Kenya, I am aiming for, top 100 is hard. Okay, let me say top 300 in Kenya. I want to do well and be able to be yo, I'm one of the best. I want to be the highest girl in Kenya. The highest girl in Kenya. That's what I'm going for. I will be the top, the queen of fantasy in Kenya. That's my goal.
Self-proclaimed queen. And which player will definitely be in your team from game week 1 to the end?
I want to say I've learned my lesson. Very difficulty. I'm going to just get Trent. I really learned a hard lesson last year. And Robertson didn't do so badly. It's just he didn't get as many points as Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I think I'm going to go with that. But other than that, I'm going to completely play around with my team.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone who came to watch. Everyone in the chat box: Sam, Anthony, Gunners, Charlie, Liam, RK Sweetie. In case I haven't mentioned you, Alex, I appreciate you guys coming on. You can follow Josh and Ben at FPL Graduates on Twitter, Instagram, right?
Not Instagram, there. Just Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube.
Twitter and YouTube. And Mukami, you can follow on YouTube at Mukami Wambora. I'll leave their names in the description and also on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Keep staying safe. This was the first episode of the Fantasy Tip Show, and I'll catch up with you guys later.